Get out of my resort. We don't serve people like you here." The words didn't just slip out. They were spat with venom, loud enough to echo across the polished marble lobby of the Coastal Serenity Resort in Miami, Florida. Daniel Harper, the resort's manager, stood behind the check-in counter, his face twisted with contempt, arms crossed like a gatekeeper of some exclusive kingdom. He wasn't whispering. He wasn't hiding. He aimed his words at the black woman standing before him, dressed in a plain white t-shirt and jeans, her sneakers barely making a sound on the floor. The entire lobby froze, guests clutching their luggage, staff pausing mid-step, the air thick with shock. Daniel's voice carried a certainty that made it clear he'd done this before. But what he didn't know was that in just 10 minutes, the woman he'd just humiliated would turn his world upside down, fire his entire team, and expose a scandal that would shake the resort to its core. Her name was Maya Jackson, and she wasn't just any guest. She was the CEO of Serenity Resorts Group, the very woman who owned the glass and gold empire Daniel thought he ruled. Maya stepped forward, her calm eyes locking onto his. "I have a reservation," she said evenly. "Presidential suite. Name's Jackson." Daniel smirked, looking her up and down like she was a problem he'd already solved. "Presidential suite? You sure you're at the right place?" He leaned closer, his voice dripping with mockery. "We don't get many folks like you in rooms that cost 10 grand a night." Behind him, Claire Morgan, the head concierge, pressed a button on the desk. Her voice crackled over the intercom, sharp and deliberate. "Security, we've got a potential fraud at the front desk. Possible stolen card." Gasps rippled through the lobby. A travel vlogger named Tyler Brooks raised his phone, already filming. "This is happening right now," he whispered to his friend Emma Larson, who started Livestreaming on X. "Coastal Serenity, Miami. This is ugly." Maya didn't flinch. She slid her ID and black credit card across the counter. Daniel picked it up with 2 fingers, holding it like it was contaminated. "This looks fake," he said loudly, tossing it to Claire, who locked it in a safe with a theatrical slam. What Daniel didn't see was Maya's hand on her phone, sending a single text to her assistant 5 miles away. "It's happening." In 10 minutes, he'd learned the truth the hard way. Where are you watching from? Drop your city in the comments, and if this moment stopped you cold, hit that subscribe button and like the video. Because this isn't just a story, it's a reckoning, and it's only getting started. The Coastal Serenity Resort in Miami, Florida, wasn't just a hotel, it was a statement. Perched on the edge of South Beach, its glass walls reflected the turquoise Atlantic, and its 20-story tower glittered under the relentless Florida sun. The lobby alone screamed money. 50-foot ceilings, crystal chandeliers the size of compact cars, and marble floors so polished you could see your own guilt staring back. This was the kind of place where millionaires sipped $40 cocktails, and influencers posed for Instagram next to infinity pools. But on this sticky June afternoon, the Serenity was about to shatter, and the woman at the center of it all was already walking through the revolving glass doors. Maya Jackson didn't look like she belonged, not in the way the staff expected. At 38, she carried herself with a quiet power that didn't need designer labels to prove a point. Her white t-shirt hugged her frame. Her jeans were fitted but not flashy, and her white sneakers barely whispered against the marble. No Birkin bag, no Rolex, just a black leather crossbody purse, and eyes that had seen this script play out before. Maya wasn't here to make a scene. She was here to check into her presidential suite, the one she'd reserved under her own name. But what she didn't expect was how fast the lobby would turn into a battlefield, and how much she'd have to fight to claim what was already hers. Behind the check-in counter stood Daniel Harper, 50, the resort's general manager, a man who wore his authority like a tailored suit. His graying hair was slicked back, his tie knotted tight, and his smile was the kind that never reached his eyes. Daniel had run Coastal Serenity for a decade, and he prided himself on knowing exactly who belonged in his 400 rooms and who didn't. To him, Maya was already a problem. Too casual, too unassuming, too different. Flanking him was Claire Morgan, 32, the head concierge, her blonde ponytail pulled so tight it matched her forced smile. Claire was Daniel's right hand, always quick to follow his lead, especially when it meant keeping the wrong people out. Then there was Ryan Kim, 28, a junior concierge with a chip on his shoulder and a smirk that said he enjoyed the power trip a little too much. Together, they were a wall of judgment, and Maya was about to crash right into it. The lobby wasn't empty. Guests milled around, some in linen suits, others in sundresses, all clutching overpriced iced coffees or scrolling on their phones. Among them was Tyler Brooks, a 30-year-old travel vlogger with 50,000 followers, his phone already out to capture the vibe for his next reel. His friend Emma Larson, 27, stood beside him, her eyes scanning the room for something worth posting on X. They'd come to Miami for a sponsored stay, but what they were about to witness would blow their content plans out of the water. And then there was Jasmine Torres, 25, a low-level concierge stationed at a side desk. Jasmine was new, barely 6 months on the job, but she had a sharpness the others lacked. Her dark eyes caught Maya's entrance, and something about the way Maya moved, calm, deliberate, made Jasmine pause. Maya's story didn't start here. At 22, she'd walked into a boutique hotel in Chicago after a red-eye flight, exhausted but hopeful. She'd booked a room, but the clerk had looked at her sweatshirt and said, "You don't look like you're staying here." They claimed the system was down, told her to come back later. Maya spent that night in her rental car, parked in a Walgreens lot, vowing to build something better. That vow grew into Serenity Resorts Group, a $2 billion empire with 62 properties across the U.S. Now, standing in the lobby of her flagship Miami resort, she was about to face the same prejudice she'd fought her whole life. The irony wasn't lost on her, but it didn't soften the sting. Daniel's voice cut through the hum of the lobby as Maya approached the counter. "Can I help you?" he asked, but his tone said he'd already decided she was a nuisance. Maya didn't blink. "I have a reservation," she said, her voice steady as steel. "Presidential suite under Jackson." Daniel's eyebrows shot up, and he exchanged a glance with Claire, who stifled a laugh. "That's a $10,000 a night room," he said, leaning forward, his eyes raking over her t-shirt. "You sure you didn't mean the motel down the street?" The jab landed like a slap, and a few guests nearby turned to look. Ryan snorted, folding his arms. "People try this all the time," he said, loud enough for the whole lobby to hear. "Fake bookings, stolen cards, thinking we won't check." Maya slid her ID and black credit card across the counter, her movements deliberate. Daniel picked up the card with 2 fingers, holding it like it might burn him. "This looks suspicious," he muttered, passing it to Claire. She squinted at it, then pressed the intercom button. "Security, we've got a potential fraud at the front desk," she announced, her voice booming through the lobby speakers. The room went quiet, every eye now on Maya. Tyler's phone was already recording, his whisper to Emma barely audible. "This is going to go viral." Emma nodded, her fingers flying across her phone as she started a live stream on X. "Coastal Serenity Resort, Miami. You won't believe what's happening." Jasmine, at her side desk, glanced at the reservation system. Her screen showed M. Jackson, Presidential Suite, VIP, owner clearance. Her heart skipped. She opened her mouth to speak, but Daniel's glare stopped her cold. "Stay out of this," he hissed, his authority absolute. Maya, meanwhile, hadn't moved. Her calm was unnerving, like the still air before a hurricane. She pulled out her phone and sent a text to her assistant, Lila Bennett, 5 miles away in Serenity's downtown office. "It's happening. Prep the system." Lila's reply was instant. "Ready. Say the word." Daniel leaned closer, his voice low but venomous. "You're holding up real guests," he said. "Walk out now or we'll make you." Claire locked Maya's card in the safe behind the counter, slamming the door with a clang that echoed like a gavel. Ryan stepped forward, smirking. "You're done here," he said, his confidence unshaken. But Maya's eyes didn't waver. "You're going to regret this," she said, her voice so calm it sent a chill through the room. Tyler zoomed in, his stream now at 500 viewers. Emma's post on X was spreading like wildfire. The lobby was no longer just a room. It was a stage, and the curtain was about to rise on showdown no one saw coming. The air in the Coastal Serenity Resort's lobby turned electric, like the moment before a thunderstorm breaks over Miami's South Beach. Maya Jackson stood at the center of a marble expanse, her black credit card locked in a safe behind the check-in counter, her dignity under siege. Daniel Harper, the resort's smug manager, leaned over the counter, his voice slicing through the stunned silence. "You're not getting that card back," he said, loud enough for the 30-foot chandeliers to carry his words. "We don't tolerate scams here." His eyes flicked over Maya's t-shirt and jeans, his judgment as clear as the glass walls framing the Atlantic. Claire Morgan, the head concierge, nodded in lockstep, her ponytail swinging as she added, "You're embarrassing yourself. Leave now or we'll call the cops." Ryan Kim, the junior concierge, took it a step further, stepping out from behind the counter, his chest puffed out. "You heard her," he said, pointing toward the revolving doors. "Get out before we make you." The lobby wasn't just watching. It was holding its breath. Guests stood frozen, some clutching suitcases, others pausing mid-sip of their $15 lattes. Tyler Brooks, the travel vlogger, kept his phone steady, his live stream now at 1,200 viewers. "This is straight up wrong," he whispered to Emma Larson, who was posting clips on X with a caption. "Coastal Serenity staff just locked a guest's card in a safe. This is wild." Comments flooded in. "Is this legal? They're humiliating her. Someone stop this." But no one moved, not yet. The tension was a live wire, and Maya was the only one who didn't seem fazed. Her calm was a weapon, sharper than Daniel's insults, and it was starting to unnerve him. Maya's voice cut through, low but unshakable. "You're making a mistake," she said, her eyes locked on Daniel. "Return my card. Now." Daniel laughed, a harsh bark that echoed off the marble. "Return it? Lady, you're lucky we're not pressing charges." He turned to Claire, his confidence unshaken. "Call security. Tell them we've got a fraudster holding up the line." Claire hit the intercom again, her voice colder this time. "Security to the front desk. Immediate assistance needed. Suspected theft." The word theft hit the lobby like a slap, and gasps rippled through the crowd. A woman in a sundress whispered to her husband, "Did they just accuse her of stealing?" A man in a polo shirt shook his head, muttering, "This is messed up." Jasmine Torres, the young concierge at the side desk, couldn't stay silent anymore. She'd seen Maya's name in the system, M. Jackson Presidential Suite, tagged with VIP owner clearance. Her fingers hovered over her keyboard, her heart pounding. "Mr. Harper," she said, her voice shaking but clear, "I checked the reservation. It's valid. She's in the system." Daniel whipped around, his face reddening. "You're out of line, Torres," he snapped. "One more word and you're out of a job." Jasmine froze, her eyes darting to Maya, who gave her the slightest nod, as if to say, "Keep going." But Daniel's glare pinned Jasmine in place, and she stepped back, her courage wavering under his authority. Maya didn't waver. She pulled out her phone and tapped a message to her assistant, Lila Bennett, 5 miles away in Serenity's downtown Miami office. "Escalate," she wrote. Lila's reply was instant. "Systems locked in. Footage is being logged." Maya slipped the phone back into her pocket, her expression unreadable. Daniel, mistaking her silence for defeat, leaned closer. "You think a fancy card makes you somebody?" he said, his voice dripping with scorn. "We've seen this play before. People like you, walking in, thinking you can fool us. Not today." Ryan jumped in, his smirk widening. "Yeah, you're not slick. That card's probably stolen. Bet you found it in a dumpster." The insult landed like a punch, and the lobby stirred. Tyler zoomed in, his stream now at 2,000 viewers. "They're ganging up on her," he narrated. "This is getting worse." Emma's latest X post showed Claire slamming the safe shut with the caption, "They just called her a thief in front of everyone." The post was retweeted 300 times in minutes. A guest, a middle-aged woman with a beach bag, stepped closer, her voice loud enough to carry. "This isn't right," she said. She showed her ID. "What's the problem?" Daniel ignored her, his focus on Maya. "You're done," he said. "Walk out, or we'll drag you out." That's when Claire made her move. Emboldened by Daniel's bravado, she stepped around the counter, her heels clicking like gunfire on the marble. She reached for Maya's arm, her fingers brushing Maya's elbow. "Let's go," Claire hissed, her grip tightening. The lobby erupted, gasps, murmurs, a few shouts. Tyler's camera caught it all, his voice rising. "She just grabbed her. They're physically trying to remove her." Emma's fingers flew across her phone, posting. "Staff just put hands on a guest. Coastal Serenity is done." The live stream hit 3,000 viewers, comments exploding. "This is assault. Where's security?" She's not even fighting back. Maya didn't pull away. She stood her ground, her voice steady as granite. "Take your hand off me," she said, each word a blade. Claire froze, her confidence cracking. But she didn't let go, not yet. Daniel stepped forward, his face flushed with power. "You're trespassing," he bellowed. "You don't belong here, and you never will." The words were a mistake, and he didn't even know it. They weren't just an insult, they were a confession, and every phone in the lobby was recording it. Jasmine, still at her desk, clenched her fists. She'd seen this before, guests profiled, complaints ignored, all under Daniel's orders. She'd logged 2 incidents herself last month, both dismissed by Daniel with a wave of his hand. "It's policy," he'd said. But it wasn't. It was him. Maya's mind flashed back to Atlanta, 19 years old, standing in a hotel lobby under pouring rain. The clerk had told her, "This area is for guests only," and escorted her to the sidewalk like a stray. She'd waited 3 hours for her parents, soaked to the bone, the shame carving itself into her soul. That night, she swore she'd build a place where no one would be turned away. Now, in her own resort, 2,000 miles and 19 years later, the same venom stared her down. But this time, she wasn't a kid. She was a force, and she was ready. Jasmine took a step forward, her voice louder now. "She's not a fraud," she said, defying Daniel's glare. "Her name's in the system, VIP, on a level." "You're wrong." Daniel spun on her, his voice a snarl. "You're fired, Torres. Pack your stuff." But the lobby was shifting. Guests were moving closer, their whispers turning to protests. The woman with the beach bag shouted, "You can't fire her for telling the truth." Tyler's stream surged to 4,000 viewers, his lens catching Daniel's flushed face. Emma's post went viral, reposted by a local news outlet. Maya raised her phone to her ear, her voice calm but lethal. "Lila," she said, "start the audit. Log every word." Lila's reply crackled through. "Done. Carla's ready when you are." Daniel's smirk faltered, just for a second. He didn't know who Maya was, but he was about to find out. The lobby wasn't just a room anymore. It was a powder keg, and Maya was holding the match. The Coastal Serenity Resort's lobby was a pressure cooker, the air thick with outrage and anticipation. Maya Jackson stood like a lighthouse in a storm, her white t-shirt a stark contrast to the gleaming marble underfoot, her calm eyes cutting through the chaos. Daniel Harper, the resort's manager, loomed behind the check-in counter, his face a mask of smug certainty, oblivious to the cliff he was sprinting toward. "You're trespassing," he repeated, his voice booming across the 50-foot lobby, each word a nail in his own coffin. "You don't belong here, and you never will." Claire Morgan, still gripping Maya's elbow, tightened her hold, her heels planted as if she could physically erase Maya from the room. Ryan Kim, egged on by Daniel's bravado, waved a hand toward the glass doors. "Time's up," he sneered. "Hit the road, or we're calling Miami PD." The crowd was no longer just watching. They were part of the drama. Guests edged closer, phones raised, their murmurs swelling into a chorus of dissent. Tyler Brooks' live stream had exploded to 6,000 viewers, his camera capturing every twitch of Daniel's arrogance. "They're doubling down," Tyler narrated, his voice tight with disbelief. "She's not backing off, and they're not stopping. Emma Larson's latest ex-post, a clip of Claire grabbing Maya, was retweeted 800 times. The hashtag Coastal Serenity Scandal trending locally. Comments poured in. This is disgusting. She showed her ID. Fire these clowns. A woman in a floral maxi dress shouted. Let her go. A man in flip-flops added. You're accusing her with no proof. The lobby was a tinderbox, and Daniel was pouring gasoline. Jasmine Torres, the young concierge, stood trembling at her side desk, her defiance hanging by a thread. She called out Maya's valid reservation. M. Jackson, Presidential Suite, VIP, owner clearance. But Daniel's threat to fire her had silenced her for now. Her eyes met Maya's, and something passed between them. A silent promise, a spark of courage. Maya's voice, when it came, was low but lethal. Take your hand off me, Claire, she said, each syllable carving the air. Claire hesitated, her grip loosening. But Daniel barked. Don't let her intimidate you. She's a fraud. Claire's fingers dug in again, and the crowd gasped. Tyler zoomed in, his stream hitting 7,000 viewers. This is assault, he said, his voice rising. They're manhandling her in her own. Wait, what? Maya didn't flinch. She raised her phone to her ear, her movements deliberate, like a chess player, setting up checkmate. Lila, she said, her voice clear enough for the nearest guest to hear. Patch Carla through. Now, Lila Bennett, her assistant 5 miles away, replied instantly. Carla's on. Systems locked. You're green. Daniel scoffed, mistaking Maya's calm for desperation. Calling for backup, he mocked, turning to Ryan. Get security here. I want her gone. Ryan nodded, grabbing the intercom. All security to the lobby, he announced. We've got an unauthorized guest refusing to leave. But the tide was turning. Jasmine stepped forward, her voice louder now, defiance overriding fear. She's not unauthorized, she said, pointing to her screen. M. Jackson, Presidential Suite, owner clearance. It's right here. Daniel's face twisted with fury. You're done, Torres, he roared. Clear your desk. But the guests weren't having it. The woman in the maxi dress pushed forward, her voice sharp. You're firing her for doing her job? That's BS. A man in a dolphin's cap joined in. Check the damn system. Tyler's camera panned to Jasmine, then back to Maya, his stream now at 8,000 viewers. Emma's ex-post updated. Staff just threatened to fire an employee for telling the truth. This is unreal. Maya's mind flashed to Chicago, 22 years old, curled up in her rental car after a hotel clerk dismissed her. The shame had burned, but it had also forged her. She'd built Serenity Resort's group from that pain. $2 billion and 62 properties later, vowing no guest would ever feel that sting again. Now, in her own lobby, Daniel's words, "You don't belong here," echoed that clerk's cruelty. But Maya wasn't that 22-year-old anymore. She was a titan, and she was done playing small. She stepped forward, closing the distance to the counter, her presence silencing the room. "Daniel," she said, her voice steady but carrying the weight of a gavel, "you've just made the worst mistake of your career." Daniel laughed, but it was hollow, his confidence cracking. "You think you scare me," he said. "You're nobody." Maya tilted her head, her eyes narrowing. "Nobody," she repeated, the word a quiet detonation. She turned to the crowd, her voice rising just enough to carry. "Would anyone like proof I belong here?" Tyler shouted, "Show them." Emma's fingers froze on her phone, her stream now at 9,000 viewers. Jasmine nodded, her hands clenched. Maya turned back to Daniel, her gaze unyielding. "Open the safe," she said. "Return my card." Ryan snorted, stepping closer. "Or what? You gonna cry about it?" Maya's lips curved, not a smile but a warning. "Or you'll be locked out of Serenity's system for life. No job, no references, no appeal." Claire's grip on Maya's arm faltered, her face paling. Daniel's smirk vanished. The lobby went dead silent, every phone raised, every eye locked on Maya. She raised her phone again, this time on speaker. "Carla," she said, her voice slicing through the tension. "You there?" Carla Bennett, Serenity's HR director, answered, her tone crisp and final. "Right here, Maya. Ready for your call." Maya's eyes never left Daniel's. "My name is Maya Jackson," she said, her words ringing like a bell. "I'm the CEO of Serenity Resorts Group. This resort is mine. And you, Daniel Harper, Claire Morgan, Ryan Kim, you're fired. Effective immediately." A beat of silence, then chaos. Carla's voice crackled through. "Processing now." Daniel's access badge buzzed red, followed by Claire's, then Ryan's. The system locked them out in real time, their power evaporating before the crowd. Guests erupted, cheers, gasps, applause. Tyler's stream hit 10,000 viewers, his voice shaking. "She's the CEO. She just fired them in their own lobby." Emma's ex-post exploded. "CEO Maya Jackson just took her resort back. Hashtag Coastal Serenity Scandal." The woman in the maxi dress clapped, shouting, "That's what I'm talking about." The man in the dolphin's cap pumped his fist. They had it coming. Daniel stumbled back, his face ashen. "You can't do this," he stammered. "There's protocol." Claire let go of Maya's arm, her hands trembling. Ryan stared at his dead badge, his smirk gone. Jasmine stepped behind the counter, her eyes glassy with awe. "I knew it," she whispered. Maya turned to her, her voice soft but firm. "You did the right thing, Jasmine. Stay ready." The crowd pressed closer, phones still rolling, the lobby pulsing with a new energy. Daniel's reign was over, but Maya wasn't done. She just lit the fuse, and the real explosion was still to come. What would you do if you were Maya? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this moment hit you hard, smash that like button and subscribe. Because this isn't just a takedown, it's the start of something bigger. The Coastal Serenity Resort's lobby was a live wire, crackling with the aftershock of Maya Jackson's bombshell. Daniel Harper, Claire Morgan, and Ryan Kim stood behind the check-in counter, their access badges blinking red, their authority reduced to ash in front of a cheering crowd. Maya, the CEO of Serenity Resorts Group, stood at the center of the 50-foot marble expanse, her white t-shirt and jeans a quiet rebellion against the glittering excess around her. Her voice had just rung out, "You're fired," and the words still hung in the air, sharp as a guillotine. Guests clapped, phones flashed, and Tyler Brooks' livestream surged past 12,000 viewers, his camera panning from Maya's unflinching gaze to Daniel's ashen face. "She just took them down," Tyler narrated, his voice trembling with awe. "This is unreal." Emma Larson's ex-post, now viral with 2,000 retweets, screamed, "CEO Maya Jackson fired her own staff live. Hashtag Coastal Serenity Scandal is blowing up." But the storm wasn't over, it was just beginning. Daniel, as Ty Askew, gripped the counter like it could anchor him. "You can't do this," he stammered, his voice cracking. "I've run this place for 10 years. You'll hear from my lawyer." Claire, her ponytail limp, stared at her dead badge, her hands shaking. "This is a mistake," she whispered, more to herself than anyone else. Ryan, his smirk long gone, backed away, his eyes darting like a cornered animal. The crowd wasn't letting up. A woman in a maxi dress shouted, "You got what you deserved." A man in a dolphin's cap added, "Should have checked the system, dumbass." The lobby pulsed with righteous fury, but Maya's calm was a blade, cutting through the noise. She wasn't here to gloat. She was here to dismantle. Jasmine Torres, the young concierge who'd risked her job to speak up, stood behind the counter, her hands steady despite the chaos. She called out Maya's reservation, VIP, owner clearance, and now her eyes were locked on Maya, waiting for the next move. Maya raised her phone, her voice low but commanding. "Lila," she said, "what's the status?" Lila Bennett, her assistant 5 miles away in Serenity's downtown Miami office, answered through the speaker, her tone crisp. "Audit's running. We just pulled the logs. You're not going to believe this." Maya's eyes narrowed, a flicker of steel in her gaze. "Read it," she said. The lobby fell silent, every guest leaning in, phones still rolling. Tyler zoomed in, his stream hitting 15,000 viewers. Emma's fingers hovered over her phone, ready to post. Lila's voice crackled through, each word a sledgehammer. Daniel Harper's been deleting guest complaints for 3 years. 47 flagged incidents, racial profiling, overcharges, ADA violations, all marked resolved without investigation. He was greenlit by Richard Coleman, former VP of Operations, who was fired last year for misconduct. The lobby gasped, a collective intake of breath that sucked the air from the room. Maya stepped forward, her voice rising just enough to carry. 47 complaints, she repeated, turning to Daniel. Buried. By you. To protect the brand. She held up her phone, displaying the audit summary for the crowd to see. You didn't just profile me. You built a system to silence anyone who didn't fit your image of a guest. The crowd erupted. A woman in her 50s, clutching a beach bag, pushed forward, her voice shaking with anger. Last summer, they charged me double for my room and ignored my emails. I knew something was off. A man in a linen suit raised his hand. They denied my ADA-compliant room last year, then gave it to some VIP. I filed a complaint, never heard back. Another guest, a young woman with a stroller, shouted, "They made me wait 2 hours to check in because I looked suspicious." That was him. She pointed at Daniel, who flinched, his face draining of color. Tyler's camera caught it all, his stream now at 18,000 viewers. "This isn't just about her," he said. "They've been screwing over guests for years." Emma's latest ex-post, a screenshot of the audit summary, went nuclear, reposted by a national news outlet. Daniel's voice broke through, desperate and ragged. "That's a lie," he shouted, slamming his fist on the counter. "Those complaints were handled. Coleman told me to." He stopped, realizing his mistake. The lobby went dead quiet, every phone zeroing in on him. Maya tilted her head, her voice ice cold. "Told you to what, Daniel? Bury the truth. Protect your buddy while guests suffered." Daniel opened his mouth, but no words came. Claire stepped back, her eyes wide with panic. "I didn't know," she stammered. "I just followed orders." Ryan, now against the wall, muttered, "This wasn't my call. I just did what he said." Jasmine, emboldened, stepped forward, her voice steady. "I saw those complaints," she said, pointing to her screen. 2 last month alone, women of color, solo travelers, both flagged as suspicious. "You dismissed them, Daniel. I have the logs." The crowd roared, applause mixing with shouts of shame. "And get him out." A man in a polo shirt yelled, "You're done, Harper." Tyler's stream hit 20,000 viewers, his voice rising. "They just exposed a cover-up. This is bigger than we thought." Emma's post updated. Daniel Harper buried 47 complaints. Coastal Serenity's a fraud. Hashtag justice for Maya. Maya's mind flashed back to Atlanta, 19 years old, soaked in a hotel parking lot after being kicked out. The clerk's dismissal, "This area's for guests only," had left fire in her. She'd built Serenity Resorts to be different, to be a place where every guest belonged. Now, standing in her own lobby, she saw that fire reflected in the eyes of the crowd. They weren't just angry, they were ready to fight. She raised her phone again, her voice a quiet thunder. "Lila, escalate the audit. Every Serenity property, every manager, every buried complaint. We're cleaning house." Lila's reply was swift. "On it. Legal's looping in. Carla's ready for your next call." Maya turned to the crowd, her gaze sweeping over every face. "This isn't just about me," she said. "This is about every guest who was told they didn't belong, every voice she silenced, every wrong you hid." She pointed at Daniel. "You thought you could erase us. You were wrong." The crowd cheered, a wave of sound that shook the chandeliers. A woman in sunglasses stepped forward, her voice firm. "I'm a lawyer. I'll represent anyone who was wronged here." Another guest, an older man with a cane, added, "I'm in. Let's sue the hell out of them." Daniel lunged toward the counter, his voice a desperate wail. "You're twisting this," he shouted. I was protecting the resort. But his words drowned in the crowd's fury. Claire sank to her knees, sobbing. Ryan bolted for the back office, but Jasmine blocked his path. "You're not going anywhere," she said, her voice steel. Tyler's camera followed, his stream now at 25,000 viewers. "This is a reckoning," he said. "Maya Jackson's not just taking her resort back. She's exposing the whole damn system." Maya stood tall, her phone still in hand, the audit summary glowing on the screen. She wasn't done. The cover-up was just the beginning, and the next move would change everything. What would you do if you uncovered a scandal like this? Drop your thoughts in the comments, and if this twist shook you, hit that like button and subscribe, because Maya's not stopping, and neither are we. The Coastal Serenity Resort's lobby was a battlefield transformed, its marble floors no longer a stage for humiliation, but a platform for revolution. Maya Jackson stood at the heart of the 50-foot expanse, her white t-shirt a beacon of defiance, her phone still glowing with the audit that had just exposed Daniel Harper's 3-year cover-up of 47 guest complaints. Daniel, Claire Morgan, and Ryan Kim were shells of their former selves, their red-buzzing badges a public execution of their authority. Daniel's face was a mask of desperation, his hands gripping the check-in counter as if it could shield him from the crowd's wrath. Claire, her ponytail unraveling, stared at the floor, tears streaking her mascara. Ryan, backed against the wall, muttered incoherently, his bravado shattered. The guests weren't just spectators anymore. They were a force, their phones raised, their voices a rising tide of accountability. Tyler Brooks' live stream had skyrocketed to 30,000 viewers, his camera sweeping from Maya's steely gaze to the crowd's fury. "This is history," he narrated, his voice hoarse. "They exposed a scandal, and it's not over." Emma Larson's ex-post, now with 5,000 retweets, blared. 47 complaints buried. Maya Jackson's tearing it all down. #Justice for Maya. But the real shock was yet to come. Maya's voice cut through the chaos, steady as a heartbeat. "This resort was built to welcome everyone," she said, her words carrying across the lobby. "You turned it into a gatekeeper's playground, Daniel. That ends now." The crowd roared, applause shaking the crystal chandeliers. Jasmine Torres, the young concierge who'd risked everything to speak up, stood behind the counter, her eyes blazing with purpose. She called out Maya's reservation, faced Daniel's threats, and now she was ready to lead. But the next move didn't come from Maya or Jasmine. It came from the guests themselves, and it changed everything. Mrs. Evelyn Carter, a 65-year-old retiree in a coral sundress, stepped forward, her silver hair catching the light. A regular at Coastal Serenity for 15 years, she was a VIP known for her quiet dignity and generous tips. Her voice, when it came, was firm, cutting through the noise like a bell. "Ms. Jackson," she said, addressing Maya directly, "I've stayed here every summer since my husband passed. I've seen guests ignored, overcharged, pushed out, especially those who didn't look the part. I never spoke up. I was wrong." The lobby went quiet, every eye on her. Tyler's camera zoomed in, his stream hitting 35,000 viewers. Emma's fingers flew across her phone, posting, "A VIP guest is calling out the resort. This is huge." Evelyn continued, her voice gaining strength. "I'm done staying silent. We want to help you fix this. I propose a guest council, regulars, new visitors, all of us, to oversee your reforms. We'll make sure no one's ever silenced again." The crowd erupted, cheers and applause drowning out Daniel's weak protest. "This is ridiculous." Maya's eyes widened, a rare flicker of surprise crossing her face. She stepped toward Evelyn, her voice soft but resonant. "You're serious?" Evelyn nodded, her chin high. "Dead serious. I've got 10 friends here who'll join me. We know this resort. We'll hold it accountable." The lobby exploded again, guests surging forward, hands raised. A man in a linen suit shouted, "I'm in. I've stayed here for years. Count me on the council." A young woman with a stroller added, "Me too. They screwed me over last year. I want change." A college student in a tank top yelled, Let's make this place actually serene. Tyler's stream hit 40,000 viewers, his voice shaking. The guests are taking over. They're forming a council right now. Emma's ex-post updated. Guests just volunteered to rebuild Coastal Serenity's policies. Hashtag Maya Jackson is unstoppable. The hashtag was now trending nationally, picked up by CNN and local Miami news. Maya raised her hand, silencing the crowd. "You're hired," she said to Evelyn, her voice carrying a mix of gratitude and resolve. "Every Serenity Resort will have a guest council, starting here. You'll work with us to rewrite the rules." The crowd cheered, a wave of unity sweeping the room. Evelyn stepped beside Maya, her presence a bridge between guests and leadership. Jasmine, now at the counter's main terminal, began pulling up the reservation system, her fingers flying. "I can flag affected guests for the council," she said, her voice steady. Maya nodded. "Do it. We're starting now." Daniel, sensing his last shred of control slipping, lunged toward the counter, his voice a ragged scream. "This is a circus," he shouted. "You're letting guests run my resort." Maya turned to him, her gaze ice cold. "It's not your resort, Daniel. It's theirs, and you lost at the moment you buried their voices." The crowd roared, drowning him out. Claire, now sobbing openly, tried to speak. "I didn't mean for this," she stammered. "I just followed him." Maya's response was swift, unflinching. "You chose to follow, Claire. You chose to grab my arm. You chose to silence guests. Live with it." Ryan made a break for the back office, but Jasmine blocked his path, her voice fierce. "You're not touching anything," she said, pointing to the safe where Maya's card still Saturday stepped back. Ryan froze, his hands raised, the crowd jeering. A man in a Dolphins cap shouted, "Sit down, punk." Tyler's camera followed, his stream now at 45,000 viewers. "The staff's falling apart," he said. "The guests are running the show." Emma's post went viral, reposted by a civil rights group. "Guests are forming a council to fight discrimination at Coastal Serenity. This is what change looks like." Maya's mind flashed back to Chicago, 22 years old, sleeping in her car after a hotel's rejection. She dreamed of a place where no one would be turned away, where every guest belonged. Now, in her own lobby, that dream was taking shape, not just through her, but through the people she'd built it for. She raised her phone, her voice a quiet command. "Lila, draft the council charter. Send it to Evelyn Carter's email by tonight." Lila's reply was instant. "Done. Legal's on board. Carla's waiting for your next move." The crowd wasn't just cheering now, they were organizing. Evelyn began gathering names, guests forming a loose circle around her. A woman in sunglasses offered to design a feedback app. A man with a cane volunteered to review ADA compliance. Tyler turned his camera to the crowd, his voice electric. "This isn't just a protest," he said. "This is a movement." Emma's final post of the moment read, "From humiliation to revolution. Maya Jackson and her guests are rewriting history. Hashtag Coastal Serenity Scandal." Daniel, Claire, and Ryan stood frozen, the world collapsing under the weight of their own actions. Maya turned to Jasmine, her voice firm. "Open the safe. Get my card." Jasmine moved with precision, entering a new code, her own. The safe clicked open, revealing Maya's black card untouched. She handed it to Maya, their eyes meeting in silent solidarity. The crowd clapped, not just for Maya, but for everyone who'd stood up. This wasn't the end. It was a beginning, and the final reckoning was still to come. How would you step up if you were in this lobby? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if this moment fired you up, smash that like button and subscribe. Because Maya's fight is just getting started, and it's about to change everything. The Coastal Serenity Resort's lobby had become a crucible, its 50-foot marble expanse no longer a battleground, but a forge for change. Maya Jackson stood at its heart, her white t-shirt and jeans a symbol of unyielding resolve, her black credit card back in her hand, reclaimed from the safe where Daniel Harper had tried to bury her dignity. The disgraced trio, Daniel, Claire Morgan, and Ryan Kim, stood behind the check-in counter, their red buzzing badges a scarlet letter of their downfall. Daniel's face was a mask of defeat, his hands trembling as he avoided the crowd's gaze. Claire, her mascara-streaked face buried in her hands, sobbed quietly. Ryan, slumped against the wall, stared blankly, his bravado extinguished. The guests, now a unified force led by Mrs. Evelyn Carter's call for a guest council, buzzed with purpose, their phones still raised, capturing every moment. Tyler Brooks' live stream had soared to 50,000 viewers, his camera panning from Maya's steady presence to the crowd's electric energy. "This is more than a takedown," he narrated, his voice raw. "This is a rebuild." Emma Larson's ex-post, with 10,000 retweets, declared, "Guests are reshaping Coastal Serenity. Maya Jackson's leading a revolution. Hashtag justice for Maya." Maya's voice rose, not loud but commanding, silencing the lobby's hum. "This resort was my dream," she said, her eyes sweeping over the crowd. "A place where every guest, no matter who they are, feels at home. You three," she pointed at Daniel, Claire, and Ryan. "You turned that dream into a lie. But today we're taking it back." The crowd cheered, a wave of sound that rattled the chandeliers. Jasmine Torres, the young concierge who defied Daniel, stood at the counter's main terminal, her fingers poised over the keyboard. She'd been thrust into the spotlight, and now she was ready to act. Maya turned to her, her voice firm. "Jasmine, suspend the check-in system. Flag all reservations tied to Daniel's staff ID. We're starting clean." Jasmine nodded, her hands moving with precision. "Done," she said, her voice steady. "Systems locked. I've got 12 pending bookings flagged for review." Maya gave her a nod of approval. "Reach out to those guests. Offer them a complimentary night at our partner resort, 5 miles up the coast. VIP stay here. Handle them manually." Jasmine's eyes lit up, her newfound authority sinking in. The crowd clapped, a woman in a sundress shouting, "That's how you run a resort." Tyler's stream hit 55,000 viewers, his voice rising. "They're rebooting the whole system, right now in front of us." Emma's latest ex-post, a clip of Jasmine at the terminal, went viral, reposted by a Miami influencer with 1 million followers. Maya raised her phone, her voice a quiet command. "Lila," she said, "send the internal alert. Notify regional compliance, diversity, operations, and legal. I want a full audit of Coastal Serenity's last 2 years. Guest complaints, staff conduct, suppression logs. Go deeper than the 47 we found." Lila Bennett, 5 miles away in Serenity's downtown office, replied instantly. "Alerts out. Audits expanding to all 62 properties. Media's circling. CNN's requesting a statement." Maya's jaw tightened, but her resolve was iron. "Let them talk," she said. "The truth speaks louder than headlines." The crowd wasn't just watching, they were acting. Evelyn Carter, the 65-year-old VIP who'd sparked the guest council, stood near the counter, organizing volunteers. "We've got 15 names so far," she said, her coral sundress catching the light. "We'll review complaints, check ADA compliance, and build a feedback app." A man in a linen suit, a tech entrepreneur, offered to fund the app's development. A woman with a stroller volunteered to collect guest stories. The lobby had become a headquarters, guests turning their anger into action. Tyler turned his camera to Evelyn, his stream now at 60,000 viewers. "This is what accountability looks like," he said. "Guests aren't just complaining, they're fixing it." Daniel, his voice barely a whisper, tried one last stand. "You're running everything," he muttered, his eyes darting to Maya. "This resort was perfect before you." Maya cut him off, her voice ablade. "Perfect for who, Daniel?" "For you. For the guest you chose to see." She gestured to the crowd. "This is what perfect looks like, people standing together, demanding better." The crowd roared, drowning out Daniel's whimper. Claire, still sobbing, looked up, her voice broken. "I didn't know it was this bad," she said. "I swear." Maya's gaze was unyielding. "You knew enough, Claire. You chose to look away." Jasmine, now fully in command, opened the safe again, pulling out a stack of complaint forms Daniel had buried. "These were in the back," she said, holding them up. "Handwritten, never logged." The crowd gasped. A man in a dolphin's cap shouting, "That's evidence." Maya nodded. "Scan them, Jasmine. Send them to legal." Jasmine moved fast, her confidence growing with every keystroke. Evelyn stepped beside her, offering to cross-check the forms with guest records. The collaboration was seamless, a microcosm of the reform Maya envisioned. Maya's mind flashed back to Atlanta, 19 years old, standing in the rain after a hotel's rejection. That pain had built Serenity Resorts, but had also taught her that change wasn't just about policies. It was about people. Now, in her own lobby, she saw that lesson come alive. She raised her phone again, her voice resolute. "Lila, prepare a statement for the board. Coastal Serenity's front desk is suspended until we retrain every employee. No exceptions. And elevate Jasmine Torres to acting manager, effective now." Lila's reply was swift. "Statements drafting. Jasmine's promotion is logged. Carla's ready for your final call." The crowd erupted, applause thundering through the lobby. Jasmine's eyes widened, her hands pausing on the keyboard. "Me," she whispered. Maya stepped closer, her voice soft but firm. "You earned it, Jasmine. You stood up when no one else did." Guests cheered, a college student shouting, "You go, Jasmine." Tyler's stream hit 65,000 viewers, his voice electric. "Jasmine's running the show now. This is insane." Emma's ex-post updated. "Maya Jackson just promoted a concierge to manager. Coastal Serenity's reborn. Hashtag justice for Maya." Maya turned to the crowd, her voice carrying a quiet power. "If you've been mistreated here, speak to Jasmine or Evelyn. We're opening a direct line for complaints. Answered within 48 hours. No BS. This isn't just a resort anymore. It's a promise." The crowd nodded, some wiping tears, others clapping. A man in flip-flops said, "I'm staying here next year just for this." A woman in sunglasses added, "You've got my loyalty, Miss Jackson." Daniel, Claire, and Ryan were escorted out by security, called by Jasmine. Their heads bowed as they passed through the jeering crowd. The glass doors closed behind them, sealing their disgrace. Maya looked out over the lobby, her dream no longer a distant hope, but a reality taking shape. The reforms were just beginning, and the world was watching. What would you change if you ran this resort? Drop your ideas in the comments, and if this moment inspired you, hit that like button and subscribe. Because Maya's not just rebuilding a resort, she's rewriting what hospitality means. 3 months later, the Coastal Serenity Resort in Miami, Florida, was unrecognizable, not in its 50-foot marble lobby or glittering chandeliers, but in its soul. The glass walls still framed the Atlantic's turquoise waves, but the air inside carried a new promise. Every guest belonged. A framed portrait of Maya Jackson hung near the check-in counter, not as a boast, but as a reminder, its plaque reading, "This space is for everyone." Jasmine Torres, now the permanent general manager, stood behind the counter, her calm authority a beacon for the staff she'd retrained. The guest council, led by Mrs. Evelyn Carter, had processed 128 buried complaints, ensuring no voice was silenced again. Serenity Resorts Group had audited all 62 properties, firing 17 managers and launching Serenity Unity, a division enforcing equity with guest-led oversight. Maya's vision, born from a rainy night in Atlanta 19 years ago, was now a movement. The guests who'd stood in that lobby, Evelyn, the woman in the sundress, the man in the dolphin's cap, received personal calls from Maya. Not PR fluff, but genuine gratitude. "You turned a moment into a mission," she told them. Tyler Brooks and Emma Larson, whose live stream hit 100,000 views, spoke at Serenity's Leadership Summit, their ex-post sparking a national conversation. Hashtag Justice for Maya trended for weeks, forcing other resorts to face their own scandals. Daniel Harper, Claire Morgan, and Ryan Kim were blacklisted from the industry, their names flagged in Serenity's hiring network. The 47 buried complaints led to settlements, apologies, and a new era of transparency. Maya, once a quiet billionaire, was now a public force, not for fame but for change. She walked through Coastal Serenity's lobby that June, her sneakers silent on the marble, seeing not just a resort, but a symbol of what's possible when silence breaks. Hospitality isn't a smile, she told her board. It's the respect you give before you know someone's name. The crowd that day, from Evelyn to Jasmine, proved it. Here's what Maya's fight teaches us. Don't stay silent when you see wrong. Your voice can spark a revolution, like Jasmine's did. Turn pain into power, like Maya transformed her Atlanta shame into a $2 billion empire. Lead with action, not apologies. Real change, like Serenity Unity, comes from doing, not saying. This isn't just a story, it's a call. Share it if you believe respect is non-negotiable. Drop a like, subscribe, and tell us, what would you do to make your world fairer? Because Maya Jackson didn't just reclaim a resort, she showed us how to reclaim our power.